Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Mandate. I'm Melissa King, and I'm so glad to be here with y'all this evening. And we're just going to take a look at a couple of things that have been rolling around in my mind and in my heart this past week. And that is how Jesus functioned in relationships with people that came to him, either asking questions about life, about the gospel, about the kingdom of God, about prayer, and just about healing, how he dealt with people on an everyday basis, and really how relationships were a huge priority in his life, and how really they should be a huge priority in ours as well as we are sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with other people in our neighborhoods, in our families, co-workers, etc. So do like or share this episode. If something strikes you and you want other people to know about it, do like or share it, and I greatly appreciate that as well. Not for establishing me, but really establishing the kingdom of God. So let's just dive in here. There's two examples that I was just really brought to my attention this week, and that was how Jesus dealt with the dad who had a kid who was really oppressed and you could say possessed by demons that would just really throw him in the fire, that would try to drown him. He was really being tormented by these demons, and how Jesus actually dealt with that father. And then the second example would be how Jesus dealt with the woman who basically she'd gone to, for 12 years, she had a sickness that caused her to bleed. For 12 years, she went to every doctor that she could. She spent all the money that she had, but still nothing helped her. And then she heard about Jesus, and then she encountered Jesus one day, and it really struck me how Jesus interacted with her as well. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at first Mark 9, 14 through 29. I'm just going to summarize this for you. Jesus is in a crowd as usual, and a father comes up to him and is just like, "Can you help my son? And I brought him to your disciples, and your disciples really couldn't do anything about it. So I'm now asking you, can you go and help my son? Because he is so tormented by these evil spirits that they throw him into a fire, that they throw him into the water, that they're literally trying to go and kill him on an everyday basis. He has these seizures, and it's beyond a normal seizure. It's literally these things are trying to go and take his life." And Jesus first addressed his disciples and just like, "Man, how come you could not take care of these, help this man?" And then secondly, what ended up happening was that the demon literally went and took over this man. He falls down on the ground, took over this boy. He falls down on the ground, and Jesus does something that I think is really interesting. And instead of actually dealing with that issue right then and there, he begins to have a conversation with the Father. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes like I'm looking at Jesus' responses in certain situations, and I'm just like, I don't know that I would have responded that way, but I would have loved to have responded this way. And as I was going through it and reading the scripture, because he says to him, Jesus in verse 21, he asks the Father, he says, "How long has this been happening?" So the boy throws himself down in front of him. He's having a seizure. This issue that the father is really tense about is happening in front of Jesus and the dad at that moment. As a father, I probably would have been like, "Hey, take care of this. Can we have a conversation later? And can you just help my son right now?" But Jesus did something a little bit different, and he started asking questions to the dad. And the dad said, he says, "Since he was a little boy, the spirit often throws him into the fire, into the water, trying to kill him. Have mercy on us and help us if you can." And then Jesus replies, he says, what do you mean if I can? Anything is possible if the person believes. And the father instantly cries out and he goes and says, I do believe, but help my unbelief. And then when Jesus saw that there was a crowd that was around that was looking at this, he immediately went and rebuked the spirit and commanded that spirit to go and leave that boy, and it did. And I think it's really interesting that Jesus starts asking questions to the Father. And I began to think, what if we began to read these scriptures through the eyes of relationship instead of reading the scriptures through the eyes of duty or responsibility or how does this apply to me, versus looking at it and saying, okay, what was Jesus' response? Because ultimately, we're not supposed to be like the dad. We're not supposed to be like the son. We're supposed to be like Jesus. So what was Jesus' response in this? And I started looking at it through the eyes of relationship and noticed that Jesus starts to have a conversation. You begin every relationship with a hello and a conversation. And Jesus began his relationship with a conversation with this man as well. How long has he been this way? Tell me a little bit about the situation. Tell me a little bit about your son. How is your son being tormented? And I started thinking, it's like, God, why did you start this way? Why didn't you heal the boy first? And it just struck me, and I feel like God was just speaking to my heart. He was just like, Melissa, I already knew what the outcome was going to be for the boy. I was going to heal the boy. The boy's been this way for a long period of time. What's an extra 2 or 3 minutes of this boy staying in this condition that I know that I'm going to go ahead and heal? He's going to be fine, but I don't know this man. So let me go ahead and just ask some questions. Let me find out where he's at. Because literally, Jesus ends up finding out that this man, he came to him asking for help, but he'd already encountered his disciples. And so he's just like, maybe Jesus can, maybe he can't, and Jesus went and made a point to go and say, you know what? Anything is possible if you believe. And the man goes and says, I believe, help my unbelief. Now, there's been many times and many messages that have been done off of, I believe, help my unbelief, that segment, but not many people talk about that relational aspect that Jesus had with that father, to get to know him, to find out where he was. And they cared so much for that man to not just sit there and deal with that particular issue or that situation, but Jesus cared. He wanted to know about the man. He wanted to know about the son, so that it was a more impactful moment. Wouldn't it be, instead of Jesus going and saying, be healed and moving on, and then that guy being like, God, Jesus healed my son, awesome. Instead of, Jesus talked to me. Jesus spoke to me. Jesus wanted to know about me. He wanted to know about my son. He cared about the time, how long my son has been dealing with this. And from that place, Jesus went and healed. See, it's not good enough for us just to have compassion on someone. You can see many times that Jesus had compassion, but Jesus' compassion had a subsequent action. And I think that you can be more compassionate with a person in their situation if you have a relationship with them. If you get to know them a little bit, then there's a compassion that rises up on the inside of you that says, listen, I don't want this person to deal with this situation anymore, because I know where they come from. I know their background. I know that they have a level of unbelief, but man, isn't it going to be amazing once they see that their son is healed? They're not going to have that unbelief anymore. They're going to have a strong belief now, and a strong belief that is based on relationship. Jesus went and healed my son because he cared about me. And that is what relationship is all about. And that is what Christianity is all about. And that when we come to follow Jesus, it wasn't following Jesus based on duty or based on a responsibility. We really came to know Jesus because the fact that there was a relational aspect to it that said, man, this is not a God that's far away. This is not a God that's made out of stone. This is a flesh and blood God that wants to have a relationship with me. And based on that, I can't help but respond. People respond to relationship. Never forget that. People don't respond based on duty. They don't respond based on position. They respond based on a relationship that they have with you. The next thing is the woman that was dealing with this issue for 12 years. She went to all these doctors and nobody could help her. And then she heard about Jesus. And I find it really interesting. It's in Luke 8. And there was a woman that came. Let me take a look here. And it's in the end of verse 42. It says, and on his way, the crowds were crushing him, and a woman was there that had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but nobody could heal her. She came up behind and touched the edge of Jesus' cloak. He was wearing just this garment, and she was down on the ground, and she touched the hem of his garment. And let me tell you something, there comes a point in time, even in relationships, that we have to get low, that we have to getting low. And what I mean by that is that we have to get to this point of humility in our relationships where we go and say, you know what? Relationship is that sometimes I need you and you need me. And if I need you, I've got to be humble enough to get low and go and say, you know what? I need help. And that's what this woman did. She got low and she's just like, I need help. And she reached out and she touched the hem of Jesus' garment. And this is what Jesus said. He said, actually, this is what happened first. She came up behind him, touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. And then Jesus said, who touched me? And then everybody was denying it. And Peter says, you know what? There's a lot of people who are around you. What do you mean, who touched you? And he said, someone touched me, and the power of God came from me. And then the woman, seeing that she couldn't be hidden any longer because everybody was just like, no, not me. And then she's like caught, here she is. She's on the ground and she's caught reaching out and touching the hem of Jesus' garment. And then he says to her, daughter, your faith has made you whole. Go in peace. And I found it very interesting, like that everybody is just like thinking that Jesus is going to be angry about this moment. He's going to be angry and go and say, who's touching me? Whatever. I felt like power come from me. I felt like the healing power of God come out of me. But I feel like in that moment, the word that totally changes the tone of this whole moment is when he says, daughter. Daughter is a relational term. Obviously, you got sons, you got daughters, you got brothers, you got sisters. There are certain terms that you use when a person is a part of a family. And how close can you be when Jesus says to this lady, daughter, your faith has made you whole, go in peace. I am so it really gets me because Jesus wasn't about there were so many people that were there that day, but this woman reached out to Jesus in a last hope, a ditch effort, but yet there was a relational aspect that said, if anybody could heal me, I've heard about the other healings. If anybody could fix this, Jesus can fix this. And if you've got kids, there'll be times that your kids will have a moment that they're having this meltdown and, something's broken, their toy is broken, they've fallen, or they're hungry, whatever it happens to be. And you, as a parent, you go to them and you're just like, I can fix this. And so this lady comes to Jesus in that same way as a daughter would come to a father, and she's just like, this has been happening to me. I need you to fix this. And Jesus doesn't scold the woman. He doesn't yell at the woman and says, how dare you touch me? He literally uses a term of endearment and says, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. And I think that is where in our lives that we need to remember that our role and our position is to be more like Jesus, to look at how he is responding to situations. When we see these stories in the Bible and we actually take on a relational aspect to it. Sometimes I hear people go and say, I was Judas, I was Peter, I was this. My thing is now, as I'm starting to really, it was like this moment. It was just like, I was having a conversation with a friend, and they were like, we assign our identity to Peter, to Paul, to Judas, to all of these people who have issues, when in reality, as a Christian, we are to assign our identity to Jesus. And let's take a look at how he responded to people and then respond just the same. And he didn't respond to everyone, the same, but he definitely responded to the majority of people who came to him in a relational way. The only people really that he responded to, with that he was pretty testy with and he was pretty angry with, were those religious people. And what is that? Religious people are absent of relationship. So that was probably his big deal, was just like, we need to be relational in this, and you all are being religious in this and causing people to have to fulfill religious duty instead of turning them correctly towards me, which is, I came to have a restored relationship with people. I didn't come to have a restored religion with people. And so today, as we just continue just walking this out and just journeying together, in Christianity and just in our relationship of following the Bible and how are we supposed to treat people, literally, the mandate is about us going back to basics. It's about us going back to basics in Christianity, going back to basics in what does the Bible have to say, and how does that translate in everyday life. And the outcome is that people, based on us becoming more like Jesus, that they actually want to become more like Jesus as well and start asking us questions. And that's only going to happen through relationships. So make relationships your number one priority. It's people over projects. It's people over tasks. It's people over duty. It is a relationship with people that's going to cause people to want to have a relationship with God. You are their first touch, really, to Jesus. So let's make it a good one. And again, if you found anything important in this or anything that you liked, do like or share this. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to just to become a part of a journey with me and the mandate. So again, I'm Melissa King, and you guys have a great night. God bless. Bye.